Welcome to episode 204 of the CUInsight Experience. I'm Randy Smith, one of the co-founders of CUInsight.com. And this season, I brought on a co-host.
That's me. I'm Jill Nowacki, the founder and CEO at Humanidei.
This episode is sponsored by Trellance. Trellance is a leading technology partner for credit unions, delivering innovative technology solutions to help credit unions achieve more. With a comprehensive suite of analytics, cloud, and talent solutions, the Trellance team ensures credit unions increase efficiency, manage risk, and improve member experience. This season, Jill and I are having conversations centered around leadership, credit unions, and living our best lives. We have some exciting guests lined up for the year, including today, someone that we're grateful to call a friend. And this, I think, is going to be a special episode and a great one to kick off this season with a guest. But today, just to let you know what we'll be exploring, some of the kind of most complex, if you want to say, aspects of leadership. Authenticity. How important is it for leaders to be them true selves? Can being too authentic, can that have its downside? So we'll unpack that and the balance to effectively lead our teams. We'll also talk about leadership styles and have they developed over time? And is it something intentionally that we need to be doing? And finally, we'll explore helping your teams, making sure they're finding their authentic selves and how to support someone as they show up and they're their best true self and when they may be different from who we are. So with that, Jill, let's just get right into this. Who are we having a conversation with today?
Thank you, Randy. It is my pleasure to introduce Mike Valentine, the president and CEO of BCU in Illinois. Mike just celebrated his 40th year with the credit union, is a 2025 National Credit Union Foundation Herb Wegner honoree, and maybe most importantly, husband and dad to his beautiful family. In episode 200 of the CUInsight Experience, the last one that Randy hosted solo, I talked about how inspired I am by Mike's authenticity. And so it's an honor to have him here as our first guest this season to talk about exactly that topic. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Jill, Randy, wouldn't want to be any other place. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Also, because you had that nice shout out. And I'm like, this is awesome. So I'm going to be here with you guys.
And Mike was also a guest on the show before. So we will link to that one as well. But thanks, Mike, for being here. We were looking forward to this. As we were building out this format, you were one of the first people that came to mind that we knew we wanted to have on. So I love that you are first. So anyways, Jill, with the questions.
So we're going to start out with a big one. It's broad. And I just want to talk a little bit about your leadership style. Is this something that you've had to intentionally cultivate, or has it kind of just been instinctive for you? It's just what emerged organically over time?
You know, as I think about it, it started back when my first job outside of college. I had a branch manager that I worked for household finance, and he was trying to teach me dealing with people and leadership and things like that. By the way, for the record, Jill, not a really good leader, okay, at all. But he gave me some advice that I thought about a lot. And one of them, which it's kind of a tell for me to you guys, and Jill, you've probably seen through this. And he said to me, Mike, he was an introverted guy, which I'd never been introverted, by the way. But he goes, first thing you need to do when you're talking to people, get them talking about themselves. Yeah. Get them telling us their story and see where that goes. I thought to myself, well, that sounds pretty cool, but then you got to be real in it. But that started my thinking, Jill, to say, all right, get people talking about themselves, which, by the way, is pretty easy when you get into that. And then it's kind of like, all right, how do you fine tune that first words of advice that Steve Becker gave me to where you are today? And I think it reiterates a lot, and it's constantly improving. And I would say improving almost every day, Jill, as you guys think about, when you're leading somebody and really taking that interest in what they're doing.
So, Mike, do you ask a lot of questions then when you first meet people?
I do, but there's a different way, Randy, that I think is, and you guys can see this because I see it in younger, how am I going to say it, Joe, without getting in trouble? Youth generation, Gen Z. Let's say Gen Z. And they'll ask you, and it's almost like, Mike, do you have a family? Yes. How many kids do you have? 3. Do you have grandkids? 4. And it's just like, it's not interactive. It's not taking the time to really go, Randy, tell me about yourself. Oh, wow, you do this. You love the scuba dive. Oh, wow, where do you scuba dive? Versus it's not so rehearsed, you guys. But I think that's where it really gets into something. And the other thing, to be honest, that it's kind of turned me into is curious. Now, you could call busybody, but you could say I'm just interested, and a lot of times for me in a business situation, I could be off on this other side. They're like, Mike, we're talking about merger focus. And I'm like, no, I'm really interested in what you're doing over here. Where'd you go in this last trip? So that kind of makes it fun.
That curiosity, I kind of always got that like, hey, why are you getting up in my business here with it? Until a couple of years ago, we were over in Africa and we were working with Monica Bells, who was the CEO over at Credit Union in Kauai at the time. And Monica, as I was engaging with Monica, she's like, you're a very curious person, aren't you? And I'm like, that is so much better than busybody. So now I own it with pride. I'm like, one of my key traits is that I am naturally curious.
I love that.
Absolutely. That was what I was going to say, was like, it seems like in a lot of the people that we've met and a lot of past guests on the show, there's just a certain curiosity about people that I think makes a good leader, right? Mike, has there ever been a point in time, or has anybody ever said to you, like, I'm sure they'd say it in a different way, but that you were being like too authentic? They were like, hey, you got to kind of keep this closer to the vest, or maybe bring it down a notch, Mike, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think, Randy, when I think of my past, and it's really, I was CEO at the time. It was earlier in my career, and the board would be kind of pushing me to be somebody I'm not. And what I mean by that was, more CEO-ish, stately, and all that. And it's like, you got what I got. I mean, I am who I am. And I have to tell you, honestly, Randy, I tried some of that stuff. It was like 3 or 4 months into it. And I went to the chairman. I go, this ain't working for this guy. I mean, I'm not having good conversations with the board. You want me to be somebody I'm not. And this is who I am. And so the compromise to that was to bring, not to knock it, to bring some professionalism into the boardroom, which is always good, and you kind of learn your way. And the good thing about a tenured 40-year employee and almost, I guess, 35 years as CEO, you kind of get your own stuff, that you can say, you got that political capital built up that you can be you. Because I worry about that. We talk about this, Randy, the future. What I worry about is, can people be their authentic self? Because it's really hard to fake, you guys. I mean, it takes a lot of energy, and I'm not that smart that I remember what I'm trying to fake to be. So to be you, I think, is so important. And I worry about that, you guys, because so many people read books. And Jill, you're a great one at constantly learning and reading and all the things you do. And you're like, you get stuck on it. You're like, no, only if it connects with you. Don't try to be something you're not, because you won't be good at it. I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, because people will often, we talk about how to create hiring practices that are really inclusive and that make sure that kind of, you get this opportunity. And sometimes we'll see people in an interview process where they'll say, well, we want to hire that person because they just have better executive presence, or they just have, we think there'll be a better cultural fit. And that's one of those things that, like, first of all, can you really judge cultural fit by like a 60-minute interview in that case, where somebody's coming in and probably putting the polish on for that a little bit? It definitely creates that question of like, what do we mean by that? And what are we really looking for if we say, well, bring us more executive presence to, like, in your case, the boardroom or the office with that? And how much does it push people toward, something that's not really them, and that maybe we do then miss out on kind of the best parts of them that they could be bringing to the organization. It takes a lot of energy to be something you're not. You said you forget those things, but it's like how much energy gets invested on, well, let me put in this style instead of let me just show up and bring my talents and traits too.
And I think, we talk about this, Jill, before, but executive presence comes. It's not something that's magical, that you click a switch and you got it. Or like you, and I'm with you. I've been in interviews for people we're hiring, and you walk out and go, they didn't have executive presence. Well, should they? They're a director level. I think they got to find their play. They got to find their groove. So I'm with you 100% with it. I think that's something that's learned, and it's something that's, you just can't just say you got it or teach a class at it. I think people got to work at it and really try to understand and get comfortable with their own skin and their own confidence in themselves.
One thing I was really excited to talk to you about, and we talked about it the last time you were on the podcast, but I wondered, as we're taking this off the authenticity, like slant at things, like your Belichick coaching tree of other CEOs out there is pretty strong. And there's quite a few of the folks that I know Jill and I both know, and some of them have very different personalities than you do. So like as they were coming up, and it seems like many of them, when you talk to them, your name is always coming up. So there's a certain amount of respect that they still have, even if their executive presence was a little different than yours. What have you found, I guess, to be able to bring that many people through, besides longevity, but to have that many people, not only that have come up with you, basically, and then become CEOs, and then what I think is so impressive, but really does speak to your authenticity, is how they all talk about you still. And like the opportunities that you gave them. We know who listens to the podcast. It's a combination of CEOs and the people who want to be in your chair, right? So what advice would you have for both sides there? And how, I guess, to bring it full circle, do you think that plays into you being your authentic self and not who somebody else wanted you to be?
Yeah, I think the thing, and I love it, Randy, it's fun. We had an alumni. Jill was out in Kauai with the Q's thing for a day. Thank you, Jill. And it was like old home week. I think there's 4 or 5 of the alumni club. And it's so much fun because, one, I hire different than me. And I'm glad you picked that up, Randy, that a lot of people are different than me, my style. But also the one thing that I really tried hard was let them be themselves. I will be straight with you, too. The board tried to change some of those styles, saying, wow, they need to be more like you, Mike. And it's like, they're not going to be Mike. I mean, they have better command of this, and this than I do. I have this strength. They have that strength, which makes us both very strong when you look at that. So I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Be yourself and don't be something you're not. And I think that's the thing I always encourage with the people that I get the chance to work with is, go do your own thing and don't think you got to be, this will sound really weird, but I'm going to do it to you because I love you too. Be like Mike. Don't be like Mike, because be like Mike got Mike where he is, but it won't get Jill where she's going or Randy where he's going. We just got to think of that, you guys. And I think the more people get that, and the more I like them when they're not like Mike, because what I need them for, if there's 2 of us that agree, I don't need the other person, but I want that other opinion and that other thought process as we get through that. But I'm very, very passionate about that, Randy, and in the development of people around me, that I want things different than what I am, and also let people be them, be themselves. I think that's so important these days.
Have you ever, I might get this wrong, was Rex Johnson was the CEO before you were? Okay. When you were moving into his role, did you struggle at all with that? Don't be Rex, be Mike, or do you think about that ever?
God, Jill, good one. That's a zinger. So, and Rex did so many great things for me. The sidebar, Jill, you might have heard it, was I remember my interview with Rex, and at the end of it, when they do the famous, do you have any questions? And I'm like, yeah. I said, Rex, how long are you going to be here? And he looks at me like, are you nuts, dude? He goes, and he kicked me out of the office, and thank God he hired me. But Rex was a very aggressive teacher. He was a lender. He was a salesperson. But I really, really, to be honest with you, Jill, I look for flaws in the people I look for and how I can fill that. And I look at the greatness of what they are, and I jump on that. The greatest thing I learned, the gift Rex gave me, was people. Value your employees, value your people, take care of them, and they'll take care of you, and develop great talent, which at the time, Rex did a great job. We were a small little credit union. We had some really talented people there, that worked for him. And I think that was something, to your point, Jill, that I really reflect a lot on. And that's why I think of, and here's where I get my greatest joy in talking to, I refer to the alumni club, is the things they're doing that isn't what we did, and they're doing new, and they're trying different things, and they're getting other perspectives other than their own. And I'm like, that's awesome. If you can teach that, or teach that or learn that, that's awesome. And they took my greatest flaws, and they took the ones they like, and they got to pick, like I picked with Rex, what I did. And I do that, you guys, with a lot of relationships I have with people, to go, God, I love that, what they do, but that's not so good. And how do I file that away in my head to create my own leadership style or whatever that might be?
I was listening to a podcast where the interviewer was asking this guy, when you were on the show 10 years ago, you said you were really looking up to this person. And he's like, I've kind of stopped looking up to people, but I take things from all of them because I've realized that we're all flawed. This is the greatest philanthropist in the world that cheats on their wife. So it doesn't mean he's still not a great philanthropist, but I don't need to take his whole life from him. And I was like,
No.
I actually
The
like
parts that are good.
Yeah, just take the good parts, right? But also acknowledge the bad, right? Like, and say, I don't want to do that either. So, Joe, I had a question for you on this with your Human Edge program and where you have that generally, say, the C-suite that wants to be the CEO. Do you talk about authenticity in that? Because I think something that Mike said early on, that idea that is very early, his board was like, we need you to be more this. And he tried. And then he was like, you're not getting the best me. If we're going to make this work, this is what you got. I think we've all been in that position where when you're trying to get that next place, you're like, well, what do they want from me if I want to get this dream job? I'm doing air quotes and nobody can see them, but
I've heard of that.
Right. So, I mean, when you're coaching somebody, and I know you've coached people from Mike's team and so many people around, how do you let people, or how do you talk through, I guess, that idea of being your authentic self and feeling safe in it? And I remember, it's one last thing and then I'll shut up. That idea that like every job isn't right for every person. You may go in and go, my best self can't thrive in this organization. But there is one out there that I can. So when you're coaching, what do you do there?
I think another thing I'm going to answer your question sort of in reverse order, but to comment on the last thing you said there, that not every job is right for every person. I would say, like, I have seen CEOs who have wanted to be a CEO so bad, they've taken a job at an organization where I can look at it and say, this is going to be oil and water with you and this board, for example, or you in this organizational direction. But it's like, no, I really want to be a CEO. I really want to be a CEO. And there are people who are extremely talented and will make fantastic CEOs with a different board or a different type of organization. So to that point, Randy, yeah, there's that situation sometimes when it's not the right job, but there's also, that includes right job, wrong organization, like right seat, but wrong bus in that case too. That idea of, and we do it with Human Edge, we do it with coaching clients we bring in. Often the first engagement we have with somebody who is looking for coaching is to start with the concept of leading themselves. And one of the activities we do with leading self, there's two activities that I think are really important. One is a definition of personal values. And to be really clear, these are personal values. Like the thing I always say after this is like, you have permission to burn that sheet after you do it. Because if you're sitting here saying, well, I've got to circle family because my mom might see it or something, it's like you don't gotta circle family, because family isn't what drives you to do the things you do, but you feel like it has to be. It's going to kind of mess things up. So being really clear on like what those top two personal values may be, those things you won't compromise under any circumstances. And then the other activity we use in that is what's called a wheel of life. And it takes it and says, you've got 8 areas of your life. You've got your career, but you also have your health and your family and your significant other and your financial situation and your spirituality. And like, how are you doing in these areas? And if you're an 8 on career, but you're a 2 on family, is that a level you're okay with? And if not, give some consideration to, did you get out of balance with that? My 2 values, through like work and having to find them, like I know that my number 1 value is growth. Like I want that continued feeling of personal growth. And if I find myself in a situation where I feel stuck, I know like it starts to wear and tear on me, and it starts to, for lack of a better term, I feel sort of gross about it. Like it's something that it's just really draining and really challenging. And so I think that's the first thing to do with somebody who's maybe trying to navigate that path or that next step is like, what is it that really matters to you? Because if you're someone who values growth, and you go take a CEO gig at a credit union that's like, all we want to do is just stay the course, like you're probably going to be pretty uninspired pretty quick. And it's like, maybe you can do the job, but maybe you shouldn't. And I think that's where you find yourself working out of alignment with your authenticity when you're working out of alignment with your values and that.
It made me think, I know what a lot of the times motivates me in the way that I work. And like when first starting CUInsight and as we were hiring employees, like I thought everybody'd be motivated the same as I was, in the same way. And it was like, oh no, you want somebody to come in and check on you and say good job and all of this. I'm like, I have this weird Gen X thing where I'm like, tell me what you want me to do, when you want it done, and then please never talk to me again. It will be delivered. Don't worry how. But I'm like, everybody else isn't like that. They want check-ins and all of that. So there was that. Mike, I noticed when Joe was talking, you were nodding your head a lot. Is there, I guess, something that you could add to that as you're thinking back over the career?
Yeah, there's a couple things. And one, as usual, Jill, you hit it on the head on a lot of things because you see it. I think the biggest fear I have, and I do with the people that have left BCU, do it for the right reasons and look at your connection you have. These are all CEOs at credit unions. Is it the right board for you? And look at the history. And Jill, you're spot on. Gosh, we can find a bad mix anytime like that and really make that good decision. But the other one, and maybe it should be saved for later, I'm taking this wheel of life. Is that what we call it, Jill? I love that because I'm spinning that sucker, let me tell you. And I'm like, ooh, I'm way out of weight on this and this. And I'm like, so I love that. And I love it to use it because when you think of their old buzzword, remember, was it work-life balance? And it's balance. And that's one thing, I don't know if you guys agree, is one of the hardest things for us all to learn. Jill, you're on the road way too much. Randy, you're somewhere scuba diving, which I love. Okay. And myself, and you got to find the balance, you guys, because that's what makes us happy. Because I just don't think unless we feel good about ourselves, can we good with others? You got to find that.
This will be the least surprising thing of all time. But when we were down in Bonaire over the holidays, Jill set up when was it?
It was at the end of August because it was.
Oh, geez, it was the end of the year. Okay, so it all blends together. But we had a couple strategic planning that also included the wheel of life. So
we spent a day together. We mapped it out. Like I had an agenda.
There was a lunch plan. There might have been snacks.
That I love you guys. I told you that.
And it's exactly why you were here, though. Is I understood when I brought the agenda to Randy that there was going to be a little bit of him just being like, "This is hilarious." On that there were, activities, and I didn't do an icebreaker. I figured the ice is broken enough between the two of us, but it did feel like we knew we were going into a really busy time. I was on the road and just a record amount last fall. And we knew that we were going into that. And so to be able to say, okay, how do we take this time right now to be like super intentional about what is it that we want? How are we doing with this? Like, how do we move forward? So yeah, the wheel of life was a big part of that. And it was interesting because we did it individually and it wasn't like we were scoring exactly in the same place for both of us. We're in different places in our careers. We're in different places. Our spirituality. And so, yeah.
In our health journey.
Yeah.
I could lose a few pounds.
Randy, that's why I like you, dude. You're real, brother.
That's all right. Okay, let's get this back on track. We still got a few more minutes. I'm so intrigued on kind of still going down that rabbit hole of the future leaders that are like listening to the podcast. We talked about it early. You've 40 years. It's amazing career. Also mention your wife, the kids, the grandkids, and you were just mentioning that kind of. I know, Joe, you love to say the work-life integration, not balance, right? What have you lived and learned, Mike, that you would recommend to that, let's just say it, the 40-year-old who wants to be a CEO someday that's like, well, I better be here first and leave last, and like still maybe has some of that mentality that's the only way to get it done. And other parts of life will take a hit for that, right?
Yeah, I think, Randy, if I have any words to really back, and I think Jill knows, my son, David, works in a credit union near us in consumers. And so it's great for me because I have someone, whether he takes my advice or not, that's another thing. You know how kids are. We both know how that is. But what's been fun to watch, the first thing I would tell anybody at that spot, do you really want it? Because it's hard. You're always on. And Jill's had a chance, I think you did, Randy, to meet my wife, Ellen. It's really hard to be on all the time. And I mean work I mean, now we're in the community out here. You're out. You know, I was at a basketball game for my granddaughter the other day, and I always wear our BCU swag. Oh, you're with BCU, but it's always on. So that's one. And then two, you know, will you really look at it? Because I think the days, you guys, because I've had people that work for me, and I'm a person, I'll be straight with you guys. I'm probably at work 8:30, maybe 5:30, something like that. Now I'm always on, but there's other ones that I have that have had work for me 7 to 7. Yep. And they think I am working. And I'm like, I promise you're not working. You know, I see you're playing a game on your phone right now that you're not. But it's funny. What is the commitment you're making? And I don't say work smart, but work intelligently at what's important. And that's developing people and things like that. So one, do you really want to do it? Two, commit to your style of what you want to do. But I like the other one to bring in, was a life integration, to say, what kind of leader do I want to be? Because I promise you, I don't know, Jill, if you'll agree, I think the first couple of years are going to be tough because you got to put in a lot of time. That balance sheet on the work is at an 8. You know, it's an all-time high, and family probably drops to a 1 or 2 because something's got to give. But you kind of got to give that commitment. I still believe in that, Jill, that I think that's important to make your place in where that environment is.
With that, this is completely off anything I prepped you for on that. So sorry. But, you know, Ellen's been by your side throughout it. So is that something that you had those conversations with her on? Like, as you're kind of like, hey, I'm going to make this move and we're going to be spending more time with me at work now? Or how important, I guess, was the authenticity with your partner during this journey too?
Huge, Jill. You know, and I would tell you, I made a misstep back in 94. Rex and I, you know, you're familiar with Lending Solutions. So we started Lending Solutions, Rex and I. Well, Rex started it, and I went along with him. And I'll never forget coming home to Ellen and telling her, hey, guess what? I'm going to go be a consultant and travel 200 days a year. And we have 2 small kids at that time. And she basically the bags were almost packed, Randy, at the door. And by the way, I never consulted her that I was doing this. BCU offered me the CEO job, and I said no. Thank God 6 months later, I came back, and the rest is history. But that okay is really important because I don't care, partner, spouse, whatever it is, Jill, you're in it together. And I can tell you there's people, and you know this, Jill and Randy, out there that you can tell that they really do enjoy this, you know, and they really are into this because it's a unique role you both play in this, you know, and to me, it helps me do a much better job because a lot of my job is here, obviously in Illinois, but a lot of my job, the boards that I've sat on, TrueStage, Valera, CU Ledger, NASCUS, MDC, filing, those have commitments too that if I'm going to travel, you guys, I'd much rather have my spouse with me.
Absolutely.
I've been many places on my own, and nothing ever happens good when I'm by myself because I'm most likely hanging out with people like Randy, hanging out, having a good time. And you know what? But it's just fun, you know, and I think it's back to my mantra. You got to have fun with what you do. And if you can build that into your relationship, Jill, the thing that I missed, though, so number 2 on the Valentine wish list now, I'm going to go home, Jill. Ellen will probably text you. I'll give her your phone. I'll say, Ellen, we're going to have a get together because we're going to be in Florida later this week. I have a TrueStage meeting. Then we're going down to Marco. We're going to have a day we're going to talk about it, and she's going to freak out. I can't tell her it's your idea yet. She is going to freak out and say, you're what? Ellen, what are you getting out of this? And she'll be the first time she'll be like, you're asking me? I said, yeah. No, I'm not going to say you yet, Jill. But I think that'll be great. But yes, I wish I had more communication in it, but I just had a good supporter in that. So
that's fantastic. Another rabbit hole. Not sure this deals with authenticity, but you mentioned the boards. How do you make decisions on like which ones you want to be a part of that align with your own compass, let's just say?
Yeah, a lot of things there, Randy. One is, can I learn? What can I get out of it personally? 2, and won't surprise you guys, the people there. the board and the leadership team, because I love working. Well, you want to work with people you want to hang out with, you want to do business with, but they're also, when you're on a board, as you know, you got to make some tough decisions sometimes too, and have some tough conversations. But to me, is it a connection I believe in? Is it a company I believe in? Is the people that I want to run with? Can I learn from it? And I got to tell you, I am rich with knowledge of taking from these boards that I've been on, because they've just been a lot of fun. And I've been able to chair 3 of them. And that's kind of a whole new level for me, because I got my day job.
Right.
It's kind of fun when you can do that, because then you're just herding cats. You're trying to build consensus, stay out of the weeds and do the right thing. And it's just been a blast to do that. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it, Randy, but it has to do a lot with, do I believe in the company and do I believe in the people? And can I run with that group of people that's in there?
Any final questions, Jill, before we get into our takeaways?
Yeah. Okay. So this is the one kind of last burning question I've had. This idea of, I sort of made an assumption that you believe in authenticity. And I think through the conversation that came out, that was loud and clear. Have you ever seen kind of a downside to authenticity? And I don't know if you know Kevin Martin, who works over at Schools First. He works with Bill Cheney over there. I heard Kevin on a panel or something one time where he's like, we're all bringing our true selves to work, but sometimes it's like maybe just a little less of yourself. And I do think there's something to that tempered side of it where there was a real trend when we were all reading Brené Brown where everybody was going to be vulnerable. And there's this part of me that's like, hey, let's just maybe don't bring me all your vulnerability. There's a certain amount of it. And so do you think there's a downside to authenticity at all?
I thought about that one a lot, Jill, in that I think as long as you take your job serious and not yourself serious, you're okay. But I did even myself run into this, I think it was 8 years ago. I was interviewing for one of the boards that I was looking at, Jill, and I never forget. And I'm in front of this board, it's the old fashioned sit in front of them, and then we're talking. And one of the directors looks at me like, "Are you real?" I go, "What?" And I serve with her right now, and she's like, "Well, you just seem happy. Is that really you?" And I'm like, "I am a happy guy," but it was funny because I was trying to be my authentic self. And it blasted me kind of like, are you trying too hard to make us laugh or, tell your story? I go, no, my story's my story, of what it is. So, yeah, I think it can, but I think you just got to really work hard on that part of being able to laugh at yourself, Jill, with some of this stuff. But yeah, I definitely, no question, I think it can come back at you, in one way or another.
I love that. Take your job seriously, but you don't have to take yourself that seriously, that side of it.
I had to stop myself from laughing because I just had this thing go through my head when you first started asking that question where you're like, we kind of made the assumption you're authentic. And he was, if Mike would have been like, fake it until you make it. We tried. It was just in my head the whole time. I was like,
so we can always retitle an episode if I got that wrong.
It comes out 40 minutes in. All right. Forget this one. So anyways, all right. So we are pushing our time limit here. Mike, any, I guess, final thoughts? And then we're going to come back with if there's one takeaway from each one of us, the 3 of us all have to come up with one now, that if they're listening right now, they've made it this far through, they're like, just go do this. Take this out of everything we've talked about today.
Well, I think there's a couple things. One is make YouTube blush. I think, first of all, Jill, Humanidei is really making a difference in all the things you're doing. Can we even say the DE&I space right now, Jill, is on fire? And not to mention the searches that you do and people you're placing. I think it's so cool. Randy, the CUInsight, you're in the next chapter, buddy. You're joining the Belichick. You just put Lauren out there, and I'm super excited for her and the difference she's going to make out there with the foundation. But it's fun watching and putting out the things you guys do. But I do think people need to be a learner. People need to be hungry for that. And I would say to be a CEO, you can't be a know-it-all. And that's why I was super excited when Jill sent me the note and said, hey, would you want to do this? And it's about authenticity. Gosh, if you're not authentic, you guys, who are you? To me, it is so doggone important to be real. And also, I think of even mental health, I'll pull into it, Jill, that it's just hard to be anything but yourself. And if they don't like you, go to another credit union or go to another place. Talk to Jill. She'll find you a job somewhere. But it's just do what you do and do what you like. Because I got to tell you, I've never had a bad day where I truly have passion. Every day I get up, I never wake up and go, oh, darn it, I got to go to work. It's fun because it's not work. It's dealing with, people you like because you like it, but you can't fake that stuff, like we said.
I love it. Jill?
So I think my key takeaway, I think if I were to have my Post-it note on my computer for my thing, it's the take your job seriously, but not yourself seriously. And, Mike, thank you for the acknowledgement of DEI and that last comment there. This has been a really interesting time. And I was telling Randy the other day that I saw this quote that was along the lines of how important it is to find joy in your work, even when it is sort of challenging. And I would say right now, DEI is a challenging space. And yet it's easier to, like, the days are flying by. It's easy to bounce out of bed, get into the work, have the conversations, move in it because it's authentically aligned with what I believe in. And so I'm doing something right now that I would say it's like, I need to take it seriously. I take it very seriously. And I'm having a ton of fun doing it. And so there's that. I think that's the thing is take your job seriously, but not yourself that seriously.
The one that it really does come back to the beginning. And Mike, you just mentioned it in yours as well, was it takes a lot more work to not be yourself than it does to be yourself. My guess is we've all been in situations where we didn't feel aligned before. And that tends to be a stressful situation. I also get the, are you always smiling? And I'm like, oh, my life's pretty great. This is me. I laugh a lot. I smile a lot. It's choosing. And I've mentioned it on the last couple podcasts that it was from the Matthew McConaughey autobiography. Before you do, ask if you want to. And I absolutely love that. And I think you find your authentic self. And, I know it's one of the things that Jill and I have talked a lot about is if you don't know yourself, it's tough to know what you want. So it takes some time. Be yourself. And that's about it. Any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up and we tell everybody where to find us and all that good stuff?
No, I think the only thing I'd probably add, Randy, and we said it, we laughed about it a lot, the wheel of life and balance and do things because you like to do it with people you like to do with, I think is the other thing. And I've been blessed in my career because I truly believe it's made up of relationships. And Jill and I, you've known each other a long, long time, and it's been fun. But there's so many of these, you guys, that people in our industry need to leverage that. We need to come together, collaborate more with that because one of us doesn't do as well as 10 of us. Putting our minds together, we check our egos at the door. And that's my other worry. As I look at the future, we know a lot of people out there, Randy and Jill. God, can they all check their egos and just figure out what the right way is, right path is? It's so hard, you guys, but it's not. Randy, you got to have more fun like you and I do.
I know. That's great. Come join our party.
But I truly love what we do, you guys. I really do. And it's fun to do it with people you like. And this is a blast, Randy, Jill. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. Okay, that will do it for us. We'll let Mike go, but a few things before we do, as always, we'll link to everything that we talked about today in the show notes. Jill's very active on LinkedIn. Let her know what's going on with you. And if there's other guests you'd like, or if you have feedback, thoughts, questions, whatever it happens to be, we'd love to hear from you. Please also take a minute to check out our sponsor, Trellance, in the show notes. Trellance is a leading technology partner for credit unions and a great supporter of ours, and they allow us to have this much fun doing what we do, so give them some love. Please also subscribe to the CUInsight Experience podcast on your favorite podcast player. We're on them all, and if you're looking for one of the books that's ever been mentioned on the show, you can always Google the CUInsight Experience podcast book list and have it on its way from Amazon. Last but certainly not least, thank you, Mike, for being here. Jill, it's so much fun to do this with you. And we want to thank all of you for listening. Y'all rock. We appreciate each and every one of you. And can't wait to see many of you soon here in Washington, D.C. So be well, friends, and see you next time.